Okay, so beginning pattern, putting the pattern paper on. So we're going to start with this front part here. So you need to cut, it will be 12 pieces that are 4 3/8 by just a hair over 3 3/4. Okay, so 4 3/8 by 3 3/4, or just a hair over that. So what that does is leave a bit of a black border all the way around. If you don't want that black border, then you can measure your 4 rectangles and do it right to the very edge. I like to have a little bit of a black border. So you're going to have 4 on the front that match, and then when they all flip over, so the back side of this, you want all 4 of these to be the same patterned paper. And then here you can either do pattern paper. I am going to just do some blank spots for journaling. So 12 pieces all the same, so 3 sets of 4. And what you're going to want to do is, well, you don't have to do it, but I don't like to have the white edge showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly distress the edge. I'm using black soot. So it doesn't have to be a lot, but that way you just don't have that bright white edge. Okay, so just distress the edges a little bit, and then this is where your ATG or glue runner, or you could use score tape if you prefer. So just put some ATG adhesive down here, going along all 4 sides. And my ATG gun is acting up on me right now. Okay, and then just adhere it down. So cut 12 of those and ink up the edges, and you'll adhere 4 to the front, and then you'll flip each one of these over and adhere them to the back, and then journaling, or if you prefer pattern paper, on the base. So with the pattern paper on, this is what it should look like. When you open, you've got 4 that match here. When you open these up, with the journaling spot there at the bottom. Alright, and there you go. Alright, so now we need to decorate these 2 sections. Okay, so this part here, and on the other side. Okay, so these will measure 4 3/8 by 8 inches. Okay, and again, that's leaving a black border all the way around. Okay, so you're going to need 4 of those. So cut 4 pieces at 4 3/8 by 8, and ink them around the edges if you desire. Put them down, and we'll be back for the next step. We have got both of these sides done, and I mean, you can leave it like that. You can add another pocket if you desire. You can, there's so many things you can do with it, as long as whatever you embellish it with is flat. So next we need to open this up and add our paper here. So you will need 1 piece for the center that is 9 1/4 by 8. Again, that's leaving quite a bit of a border, so you can make it just slightly larger if you desire. And then the 2 side ones, well, they should be the same as the last ones we did. What did I say they were? So 8 inches by just over 4 1/4, so 4 3/8. Okay, so 4 3/8 by 8 again. So 2 more of those and then the one in the center that is 9 1/4 by 8. Okay, perfect. So put those down, and then we can move on to the next part. So continuing on, when you lift this, we've done this whole part now, when you lift that up, you're going to need another piece of pattern paper, the same as the one we did on the other side. So it's 9 1/4 by 8. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 9 1/4. 9 1/4 by 8. That looks right. Yep, okay, so 9 1/4 by 8, and then for this part right here, you'll need 2 pieces that measure 4 or just over 4 by, again, 9 1/4, so 9 1/4 by 4, and so you'll need 2 of those. And then over here on your flaps, these ones are all 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. So you're going to need 2, 4, 6, 8 of those. So 8 pieces by 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. And then lastly, for the end of this section, you will need 1 piece. I'm going to open it all up. 1 piece for the center part. That is 7 3/4 by 5 7/8. Okay, so I hope you got all that. Cut all your pieces and ink them and stick them down. I'm just not doing it on camera because it's just something that you can do on your own, and it always takes me a while to figure out what pattern paper I want to use anyway. So we'll ink all that, put it all down, and then the next step is when we will actually adhere our pocket to the page and do our swing tab and all that kind of stuff. So the next part I'll do with you. Okay, so we're now done with this flap. So we're going to start on the inside. So we've got this, the back side of this. So we need a piece of pattern paper measuring 6 by 7 3/4. Okay, so cut that out, and we're going to adhere that down. Just move this back a little bit. So the score tape would work just as well for this. Okay, so we'll get that down there. Sorry, my big head's going to be in the way for just a moment. Okay, so next we'll move on to this part here. Okay, so you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 3 1/2 inches by 7 3/4. Okay, so you'll need 2 of those to do either side of this. Okay, so cut those 3 1/2, 7 3/4. And then we'll put those on. I've already inked all of my edges. My ATG gun never acts up on me when the camera's turned off. As soon as I turn the camera on, it does all kinds of weird things. It's got performance anxiety or something. Okay, so to this side. Okay, and then you will need 2 pieces, 3 by 7 and 3, so that's going to be these 2 here. Okay, so again, I've already inked them. Okay, and then you will also need 2, this one and this one back here. So you will need 2 at 3 and 7/8 by 7 and 3. Okay, so your pocket is just a piece of cardstock. We're going to adhere it just on the edges, right down onto your chipboard. Alternatively, you could measure this so it's a 1/2 inch longer on each side and the bottom, so that you could score it a 1/2 inch and fold it under to create a deeper pocket. I'm just going to put it right down onto the page. So you need to put your pattern paper down first. Now it's not going all the way across the page. As long as it goes, you know, a couple inches underneath the pocket, then you're good. So yeah, so as long as it kind of just overlaps. So we're going to put the pattern paper down first, and then we're going to put the pocket on. Oh, and the pattern paper measures, I mean, mine measures 5.5 by 7 3/4. So the 7 3/4 is the length. You can make it any length. You could have it all the way across if you like, to here, to here. So the length will kind of depend on you. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to put adhesive just on the 3 edges of the pocket. I'm actually going to use score tape for this, just because score tape is much stronger. So when you use score tape on a pocket that's right down, when you stick tags in, it could stick a little bit to the edge with the score tape. If you use wet adhesive on this, it will not. It will dry and none of your tags will stick. So you can use wet adhesive. I have completely run out of my wet adhesive. So just because I don't have any left, normally I would use wet adhesive, but because I have actually run out, and I've got more coming soon, so I'll be using score tape. Where I live, there is no craft store, so I have to either order materials and supplies online or take a ferry into the city, which is Vancouver. Okay, so put your pocket down, making sure you don't go over this score line over here, and making sure that you go over the edges of that pattern paper. So, got your opening there. Okay, and now we're set to put that swing tab on. Now, I'm a little bit high. This whole thing should have been moved down a little bit. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get it back up now. Like I just said, once score tape is down, it's down. Yeah, it's down there. So ideally, you want to make sure Just see what I've done. I've got it so that there's a little bit peeking up here, and I don't really want that. And then it's empty down here. So I didn't line it up perfectly. I'm probably going to end up keeping this album, so I'm okay with it. But try and line it up so with this flap here, so it's all correct. Anyway, okay, so this is where our swing tab is going to go to close these two pieces. So I am going to be using another one of these flowers that I used in the first album. They are from Studio G. We're going to use a pen just to put a tiny little mark where we need to make our hole. Okay, so now in the paper you're going to make just a little hole. You can use your crocodile, you can use just a little piercing tool, up to you. So we've got just a little hole. We are going to put our little swing tab, our metal swing tab in there. Okay. And now we're going to adhere it down to our pocket. You might want to put just a little bit of extra tape over top of the tines there. And now we will stick it down. And there we go. We are done with this whole half. Yay! So let's start working on this side, and we're going to be covering this whole flap here to begin. Okay, so you'll need 2 pieces, one for each side, 2 pieces cut at 3 3/4 of an inch and 7 3/4 of an inch, so 2 of those. And then you will also need 2 measuring 5 by 7 3/4. So you'll need 2 of those, one for the front, one for the back. Okay, so ink those up and adhere them down, and then we'll come back and we'll work on this section, which is where we're going to put our other 2 swing tabs. So we have just adhered paper to this flap here. Oh, but I forgot to do the inside. Okay, so just measure with an 1/8 of inch border around there. Okay, we'll get some paper in there. But I'd like to get these swing tabs on. So this little piece measures 2 3/4 by 7 3/4. And now before, when we put over here, when we put the swing tab on, because it was going into a pocket, we didn't want the tines going inside the pocket because they might catch on the tags. So for this one, we're actually going to adhere this piece down first, but we're going to keep this one, the back side, off for now. So we're going to put the brads right through this and have the tines on this side. Okay, so go ahead and 2 3/4, 7 3/4, cut your piece, ink up the edges, and adhere it down. Okay, so now let's figure out exactly where they're going to go. I'm using a couple Tim Holtz little leaves foliage pack. What is it called? Yeah, the foliage pack. So it's looks like this. It's got a whole bunch of flowers and leaves in it. Okay, so we're going to do 2 of them. Now I'm just going to take a pen and just mark a little dot where I'd like my brad to go. Okay, and now I don't think well, maybe it will. Let's try and see. So our crocodile, see if it can get in there all the way. Nope, it won't quite reach. So we're gonna have to just use a piercing tool of some kind to get in there. I'm actually just gonna use a seam ripper here. So just make a hole. Now you might need to make it slightly bigger. I'm just gonna use my little tweezers to make it slightly bigger so it has enough room for the brad to go through. And affix your two pieces. Really push down on the tines of the brad just so they're really, really good and secure. I just had some extra score tape down there just to keep that magnet in place. Okay, and now we can affix the piece on the other side here. Okay, get that on there. And close it up and see how they go. Fabulous. Okay, excellent. So now we will work on this part here. So you'll need two pieces, 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then when we lift up this flap, this piece is 5 3/4 by 7 1/2. Okay, so ink and adhere those down, and then we will start working on the whole inside part. Okay, so we're ready to do the inside of this second side of the folio. So on this side here, you'll need a piece of pattern paper 5 3/4 by 7 1/2. And then for your pocket, the flaps, you'll need 4 pieces that are 3 3/4 by 6, so 4 of those. The center part will be 3 3/4 by 9. This top part here is, what is it? This top part is 9 by 5 3. So 9 by 5 3. And then for the pocket part, again, you can go all the way to the bottom or just enough to have an overlap where the pocket will be. So mine is 9 1/2 by, mine is 6. You can go a little longer if you desire. And then this top part here will need 2 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 8 1/4. Okay, and then this piece here is 9 by 5 1/2. Okay, so let's start adhering those all down. Well, first we'll ink them up and then we'll adhere them down. Okay, so I'm just about to ink this last piece here. Just going along the edge. Just to kind of get rid of that white paper border where you've cut. Okay, so everything is inked. Now we can start adhering them down. So get your ATG or whatever kind of tape or adhesive you're using. Okay, so again, this one is 9 by 5.5. Okay, so you can adhere down your piece that's going under the pocket there. Okay, so now we've got everything adhered down. And if you missed any of the measurements, you can either rewind and listen to it again, or just measure what the cardstock is and just cut it down just slightly so that you have a black border. And now we're ready to adhere our pocket. So remove your score tape. And the pocket's just slightly small. Well, we all make mistakes, so I'm just going to, there's always a fix, so what I'm going to do is just embellish along either side where it's just slightly too short. Sorry about that. So alternatively, you could cut this piece of paper just slightly narrower and then you won't even notice. So totally up to you. And now we've just got our two inserts that go into the pockets. So again, just measure and cover with patterned paper so that they're just slightly less. And now we're done. We have finished our album. Now we just have to do the cover. And with the cover, get those closed up. Oh, I also put a piece of paper, pattern paper, right down the spine. Alternatively, you could use some lace or whatever you desire. So for the cover, oh, I got some glue on there. For the cover, I'm going to be using red. So again, cut your pattern paper to size, ink the edges, and decorate however you like. So this is a total personal preference. Add some flowers, some metal embellishments, whatever you so desire. This part is completely up to you. So yay! Congratulations! We have made a folio mini album. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. And yeah, it was great fun crafting with you. Have an awesome day. Bye!